Ladies and gentlemen, after much hesitation, the Demons from Outer Space is back. I have no idea what episode number it is. I'll find out when I edit it. Dylan McCandless, Super DM64, is also conducting this laboratory experiment with me. Hello, Dylan.
Dread it, run from it. The DFOS podcast always arrives.
Exactly. So we are on the road to the Infinity War, as Dylan alluded to. It is a movie that Dylan and I are meeting with much expectation. We are both big Marvel guys, and we're going to be doing 3 podcasts in a row, all about Marvel stuff. Very different Marvel stuff, but all very, very, very loosely connected. Well, two of them not so loosely. This one very loosely connected to Avengers Infinity War.
For the record, Bill, this is The Demons from Outer Space, issue 146.
Oh, issue. Very clever. So there you go. You ruined it. I was just going to find out when I edited it, but now I know, and it will haunt my dreams forever. So we've been meaning to do another discussion about the 70s Incredible Hulk show for quite a while. It's a show that I grew up on. It's one of my favorite comic book adaptations. Dylan knows very, very little about it at all. We watched the pilot together last time.
Yeah, we did.
Are you more familiar with it than I'm giving you credit for? Are you gonna defend your knowledge of the 70s Hulk show?
No, I mean, I know about it. I just didn't watch a lot of it.
Okay, well, that's all I'm referring to. You don't have as much, like... I watched pretty much all of it on TV back in the day, and then I bought all the DVDs later and got caught up. So...
Yeah, like I have vague memories of maybe seeing some of it and being like, that's weird.
But in terms of, like if when I show you this episode, you're not going to have any idea of, like, what's going on.
Yeah. I didn't even know. Apparently, you've told me that they used to air this on the Sci-Fi Channel all the time. I didn't even know that. Like,
yeah, I used to stay home from school and just kind of hope that they would be playing the Hulk that day. And more often than not, I would be right, and I would get to watch Hulk all day and not have to be at school. Hallelujah.
I remember being young, and everybody would always talk about, the Hulk show from the 70s with Lou Ferrigno and blah, blah, blah. But I always thought, like, well, it's not on anymore. There's nowhere to watch it. Apparently, I could have all along.
No, I believe they play it on MeTV, I believe that channel's called. There's a couple of places where you can catch it now. It's not like it's disappeared forever. For the purposes of our discussion tonight, last time we just did a review of the pilot. But because Dylan and I actually watched it together for that anyway, we figured we'd just do a commentary on an episode tonight as opposed to just doing another review. Because I feel like that'll prompt more discussion anyway, actually having the thing in front of us. And Dylan kind of experiencing this blind will be more fun than talking about it afterwards, I feel, especially this one.
Well, the beautiful thing is that it will be a review wrapped inside of a commentary.
That's why we like doing that, because it's like a double whammy.
Exactly.
Because it's an excuse to make the longer content that we already make anyway, and it gives us time to say all of the things that we take so much time to say anyway. So, Dylan, tonight we are continuing with the first season, which wasn't my original plan. We were just going to jump into second season, because the first season is all exactly the same shit every episode. David Banner enters a town. He encounters...
So the opposite of like the early run in the comics, where they were just throwing a bunch of shit at the wall and
yeah,
trying.
where it was different every issue? Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Well, okay, I mean, I guess it's different in the sense that, like, it's the same in the sense that, like, he encounters a different kind of conflict every episode. Like, and like they constantly switch mini genres. Like, at this episode, it's a fucking boxing episode. This episode, it's a car wash heist. You know, like, different stuff. But,
car wash heist.
Yeah, all kinds of very strange crap. But it's all the same formula: problem, bad guys, victim, Hulk. You know.
Well, not to piss off Willem Dafoe, but maybe they should go back to formula. That was a Spider-Man 2001 reference.
I love Spider-Man 2002.
Was it 2002?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I always think 2001 because I'm thinking about like the Twin Towers controversy.
Right, yeah. Because it came out summer 2002, so it was in production during 9/11, and
Yeah.
it was pretty much done by the time 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
So
Oh, they like put it on the back burner, didn't they? Like they had it ready to go and then they like delayed it because of 9/11.
they
It wasn't that.
may have, but I mean, they would have essentially had to cut one scene. And I think they still used footage from the scene in the final film.
Yeah, but I think it was one of those things where like after 9/11 where like comedians had to like be like, how long do we wait before we be funny again? I think maybe it was a similar issue where it's like, does anybody want to watch a comic book movie right now? You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't remember if it had like an original release date or if it was shifted. I mean, obviously they changed those fucking posters. That was for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they cut the scene out of the movie. You can still find the trailer online though, which I think was in the film originally and was supposed to be his reveal in that suit, because there is no proper reveal for him in the costume in the film. Like there's no Chris Reeve Superman scene where he runs in and out of a revolving door and comes out and then saves a chick from falling out of a helicopter.
That's
like,
an interesting point because that's usually a big part of these origin story movies. I mean,
yeah.
even Iron Man has it. You know, he goes to the desert and kicks all that ass.
Yeah, exactly. But the version of that in the movie is a montage, and you don't really get a close look at him. And when you do, it's for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And he's not doing anything. So, I mean, he's swinging, but like that's it. Like we see him do a lot of that. That first Spider-Man movie, I constantly change my opinion on it because I have so much nostalgia for it. But whenever I watch it, it feels like a movie that's like 5 years older than it actually is.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Because the script clearly was rewritten so many times that like it comes from movie making 5 years prior, where James Cameron was still attached, and it was still going to be like this post T2 tech thriller.
Well, even though it takes itself way more seriously than say an Evil Dead 2, it's still got that like Sam Raimi tongue-in-cheek thing going on. And I think sometimes maybe it just the tone comes off a little.
Yeah, the tone is really weird. Yeah, it's sometimes wonderfully like kind of wholesome comic book corny from the 60s, and then other times it feels like a weird like 90s action movie.
Yeah, I think he was still trying to figure out how to balance it, and then he hit it right on the fucking head in the second one. Which was,
2 is still great.
Which I want to say was 2004, right?
Yeah, that's dead on.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Hulk. So while those Spider-Man movies were being made, I was watching the Hulk on Sci-Fi, and season 1 we are not going to leave yet, even though I wanted to, because I think Dylan and you guys need to know how I felt on those days home from school watching Hulk on the Sci-Fi Channel, just seeing episode after episode of the Hulk stopping small town muscle from moving in on the local grocery store.
Now, did you have the same issues with it then as you did now, or were you just a dumb kid saying like, "Oh, cool, the Hulk punching that guy in the face"?
Yeah, no, I definitely was like, "Can we please get some comic book stuff?" But I was happy enough to be watching the Hulk on TV for sure. I mean, that was a treat in and of itself. The fact that happened so often was, that I could. I was almost convinced at a certain point that Sci-Fi Channel had like a representative outside my house, and they knew when I was staying home, and they'd be like, "All right, put the Hulk on. He's home."
Especially since, unlike the Spider-Man one, the Hulk animated series from the '90s never got replayed that often.
No, my exposure to that was mostly through VHS tapes and whenever like they would put out a DVD compilation of Marvel cartoons, where it was like, here's all the ones that have Spider-Man cameos in them. Or I remember there was another treat back in the day. It was on ABC Family. It was called The Incredible Hulkathon, and it was just every cartoon they had access to that had the Hulk in it. That was so good back in the day. I had that taped.
Because for a long time, I didn't realize how many animated series there had been in the '90s. There was kind of a mini version of what's going on now with the MCU. Because I was only really exposed to Spider-Man and X-Men, because those were the two most popular ones, and those are the ones that they replayed all the time. But like all those others from the middle, like the Fantastic Four and Hulk and
Iron Man, the Iron Man, the both Fantastic Four and Iron Man had this bizarre Like, they each had only 2 seasons, and the first seasons of each are radically different from the second seasons.
Yeah, so they never I mean, they replayed them later on, and I finally got to see some of them, and I can see why they didn't catch on as much as as Spider-Man or X-Men. But I actually thought the whole cartoon was pretty good.
Yeah, the whole cartoon is pretty good. I think they ultimately just kind of ran out of ideas with that because they literally adapted like every popular storyline in the one season. I think that also has 2 seasons, maybe even 3. I don't know. I like
that is also an
I like a
interesting
lot of
issue.
elements of the Hulk cartoon, but it really jumps the shark in the end though. If you go to the end of that show, it totally loses it.
Yeah, that is the other interesting issue. Everybody, when they think of comic book characters, they think, oh, there's 70 some odd years of stories to adapt. Not really. Not all comic book characters are created equally. Some of them are always running, like Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, and other ones, you know,
The
hey,
Hulk had decades of cancellations.
they'd be like, hey, you'll get a new arc in
Nah, maybe not decades, because I think after the 70s he was pretty much running straight. After the TV show, he was pretty much like one of the Marvel's A-listers.
Here's like a 5-issue limited run. See you in 10 years. Like that kind of shit. It just depends on the character.
But the Hulk, it's not even an issue of like there's not content to adapt, but so much of it is identical. So much of it is, I mean, we can criticize this show for having that formula of David Banner rolling up to a town. Oh my God, David Banner, you're a nice guy. There's this dickhead muscle-bound guy trying to steal money from me. Can you turn into a green guy and beat him up? I guess. Now I have to leave town again. But that was actually, but that was the comics as well. It was just replace muscle-bound jerk with super-powered muscle-bound jerk and /or monster or the leader. And it's the same formula, Bruce Banner and you throw Rick Jones in there too. They were going from town to town solving problems of the week.
That's why when I saw the Black Panther movie, I was surprised just how much of his stuff they threw into the first film, because I was like, Black Panther, there's a few runs out there, but he doesn't have like the biggest fucking gallery to pick from.
No.
Like maybe you should hold back on some of these things you're throwing into this movie.
Black Panther only has like 5 or 6 lengthy runs, and now they have one that will probably last forever, and he'll never get canceled again, presumably.
Probably. He's like Black Batman now, which is what they were always aiming for with the design.
Right. So tonight's offering from the Hulk, in order to capture that formula, I did want it to stand out. So I figured I'd pick my favorite from season 1 that has that formula. It's called The Beast Within. It's episode 4 of season 1. It is a zoo setting, so, it's already got the animal vibe that makes it more interesting. But it plays around with some psychological ideas of the Hulk being a representation of our animalistic side, of our, throwing ourselves to our primal urges, and the fact that maybe if we were better in touch with our animal instincts and not so obsessed with the advancement of our society, maybe we wouldn't be so bad off as David Banner is in the show.
That's an interesting idea. So if
the Hulk fights a guy in a bad gorilla costume, so that's the real reason we're watching it.
So if the governor from Conquest from the Planet of the Apes was in this show, he would view the Hulk as the ape inside every man who must be beat into submission. Yeah,
exactly. Which I think ultimately is why Jack McGee works so well in this show.
Because he's basically the evil governor from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, in a way.
And he slowly starts to look at the Hulk as like a bizarre, lovable freak, as opposed to that. But early on, he views the Hulk as just like this menace.
So they kind of took their Thunderbolt Ross analog and developed him into a bit of a Rick Jones by the end. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. So now I think we both should get our versions of episode 4, The Beast Within, booted up and ready to go. And however you at home are going to be doing so, whether it's I have it on DVD, so I could have done that, but I chose not to. If you have the DVD box set of this, which is awesome, you should get your hands on it. It's got some good special features on there. You learn how hard it was to make this show simply by the fact of, in the 70s, it was actually kind of hard to make a Hulk because green body paint was not something that people had, you know?
That's interesting.
In America anyway, especially when it's the whole body. Because, typically aliens and stuff in movies, it's just on the face and on the hands, and oftentimes you can have one-piece prosthetics, but when it's the whole body, that's hard to do.
Yeah.
And when it's the Hulk constantly ripping into stuff and fighting, it's hard to get it to stay on.
That's interesting because if you don't know about anything about it, it seems like a very easy show to make. It's a bucket of green paint and then like some.
You would think so, yeah.
Some things that are made out of styrofoam but are in the shape of like cars. You know what I mean? Like
right. But that only seems easy to us in our modern standards, where we're watching like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and shit, where they can do that in 2 seconds. But back in the 70s, the sheer idea of having a guy stronger than average is terrifying to a producer. To have to budget for that.
Yeah, well, it's like you look at like the Batman show from 60 whatever, is it 66?
Yeah.
That
had a much grander budget than even this.
Well, you look at even that and you think this looks kind of cheap, and then you think about it and you're like, oh wait, but that's a lot of like set building and it's on a TV budget, like.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right. But like I said, that's even more high end than this is, because this is more grounded. This is TV drama budget. This is not TV family action adventure budget.
Yeah, what kind of budget did the Linda Carter Wonder Woman show have? I never watched any of that in full.
That's somewhere in between a Hulk and a Batman.
I was about to say, from what I've seen, that looks closer to this.
Yeah, that's somewhere in between a Hulk and a Batman. That show, quality wise, also is somewhere in between. Because...
And then at the very bottom of the barrel, there's that like TV special that they did in the 70s. That was basically the Justice League, but they called it like the League of Superheroes or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Like, it was awful. It was just, I've seen clips of this. There's a bunch of shitty costumes. I wish I could remember what it was actually called.
Wait, was it them on a game show or some sort? I remember that, but it wasn't a plot. Are you talking about the one from the 90s?
Was it from the 90s? Because it looked older.
There was a Justice League pilot for a TV show in the 90s, yeah.
No, but see, this wasn't called Justice League. It was called something else, but it was basically just because it had like Batman and Superman and the Flash and all of them there. But it wasn't called Justice League, and I wish I could remember what it was called so that you could Google it.
It wasn't like a weird game show / variety show?
It might have been, actually.
Because Adam West was... Because they said Adam West was Batman. Because he was like the host.
Yeah, that might be what I'm thinking.
Stan Lee was there, even though it was all DC characters, which was weird.
I think that might be what I was thinking of. Because the Batman suit was like fine because it just looked like the one from '66, but then all the new characters had like really shitty costumes.
Yeah, I think Superman's costume was George Reeves, if I'm not mistaken.
Stan Lee hosted it. That is weird. I mean, he was friends with Bob Kane, so.
And Stan Lee, well, you've also got to remember that Marvel and DC were both owned by the same company for like 20 years, so.
Yeah, that's true. I also recently found out
during their heydays in the 60s and 70s.
I also found out that there was a moment in the 80s where I guess DC wasn't selling too well, and Marvel actually had the option of buying them, and whatever idiot was in charge turned it down. I'm like, you had the opportunity to buy your...
That's right, and because they said that all those characters will just disappear into nothingness, and then Watchmen, like pretty much the DC Renaissance happened like literally like the year later, and you had Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, Swamp Thing.
You can't...
Whatever happened to the Man of Steel.
You can't count on your enemies to die by themselves. You gotta put the bullet in their head yourself.
You had to badly reboot all their characters before they did a good job at it like a couple of years later, and then they saved their asses.
Haven't you ever seen a movie? You leave them for dead, and then they wind up surviving somehow, and then they come back.
Haven't you ever watched a Bond movie? Jesus.
Like like it doesn't matter. You're winning again now, but still.
Let's leave James Bond tied up in a helicopter that'll launch missiles that'll come back at the helicopter and blow it up. We could just shoot him. Nah, that's too easy.
Yeah, like DC is on the table saying, "You expect me to talk?" And Marvel's walking up the stairs saying, "No, I expect you to die." And then he gets out.
Exactly, well, in that instance, he didn't get out. He had to tell him that he knew something. So basically, They had to throw like another character at them. Like, oh, you can use the name Captain Marvel. We'll call him Shazam. That was probably that's probably what they did. I think that was later though. I don't think that happened at that point.
I forgot he didn't just escape from that moment in Goldfinger. Damn. That's like the one time.
Yeah, that was the one time where that didn't happen. He would have died had he not busted something. Had he not been like, name I heard one once. Operation Grand Slam. So the Hulk, you better have your fucking version open because I'm pressing play. We are going to start watching episode 4 of season 1, The Beast Within, in a 3, a 2, a 1, a play, Mario. So, like I said, Zeus
this just
setting...
begins. Wow.
Well, no, this is a preview. This is an episode preview. All 70 shows had this. Then they're going to go into the intro, and then they'll go into the actual episode proper. You see your gorilla suit there.
This is last time on Dragon Ball Z. Or no, not even.
This is about to happen on Dragon Ball Z.
This is what they do now with Super. Or what they were doing with Super before it ended. They would play like a couple seconds of like, hey, you're about to see this. And I was like, well, why are you showing it to me now?
Dragon Ball Super! Yeah, I remember that from the last couple episodes. See, and now we're actually like into the intro proper.
Yes.
The intro to this show, I love it. I always have. I think it's great. If you didn't see the pilot...
This was all brilliantly recreated in the Incredible Hulk movie, by the way, from 2008.
Yes, I almost wish they would have had a narrator like this, so it would have been even more on the nose. To be like, Dr. Bruce Banner, physician, scientist, trying to tap into the hidden strength that all humans have.
That's one of the things I love about that movie. They kind of blended comic book Hulk with TV Hulk. The Hulk in that movie even kind of looks like the Lou Ferrigno version. Well,
what they did with that is they gave him the long black hair. They did the comic book Hulk in the Avengers, and we've had like a comic book Hulk since, but they did a middle ground Hulk in that. Yeah, I prefer the comic book Hulk, to be honest. I think the CGI Lou Ferrigno Hulk is like, they did a nice mix in the 2008 one, but I think a CGI like caveman looking Hulk, I don't know.
Yeah, well, they still weren't doing motion capture, which I don't know why. But apparently Mark Ruffalo is the first guy to play both Banner and Hulk, and I'm like, why didn't you do that? Well, you had the technology. Gollum was years before.
So the formula that he gets thrown into is he gets a series of odd jobs throughout the country, and that's kind of the intro to every episode. Whatever job he's at, something bad happens there that forces him to turn into the Hulk to solve the problem. And in this one, he's working at a zoo. There's some people doing some bad stuff with the animals. He tries to do something about it, and the Hulk ends up having to get involved. This one is better, though, because, like I said, they get into the mythos with the psychology. Also, he's forced into rooms with people who know who David Banner was. Because, he's dealing with people who are working in his field. He meets up with the lady later in the episode who's an animal psychologist. She's testing this drug that's supposed to be able to control stress of aggressive animals. So obviously David's interested in her for that, because he's thinking potential cure. But like I said, they do a lot in this episode in particular to make, David Banner's just fucking around, just finding work until eventually he can stop turning green when he gets pissed. And they actually made it interesting, and they made it feel like there was a reason to be here.
You mentioned it before that one of the reasons the show is apparently difficult to make was that they didn't have access to a lot of green body paint. I wonder if they would have had an easier time of it if Stan Lee had let them change the color to red like the guy in charge wanted to do.
I think that was part of the reason he wanted to do that.
Well, his explanation
was that he didn't want it to be the envious Hulk. Yeah.
Yeah, that red is the color you associate with anger, which actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know why. Well, I mean, green was never Stan Lee's first choice anyway, but I wonder why he never thought to do red instead of green in the comics for that reason.
I don't know. Well, he picked green eventually because they didn't have any green Marvel characters. So
now we have a Hulk for every color of the rainbow. It seems like
we have a Red Hulk now, so it feels weird to have suggested that. And of course, he's got to meet a new girl every time he goes into his fucking town. But it's like he's one of those characters where it's like he hits on every girl he meets, but he knows he's not going to go any farther with it because he's the Hulk.
I just realized another reason this show is probably hard to make. You have like 2 or 3 cast members that carry over, and then every other for the rest of it, it's completely new cast, completely new location.
It actually kind of makes it cheaper. You only have one leading man. Everybody else is totally interchangeable. They can be anybody. So you just constantly hire new actors and swap them out. They're cheaper you're hiring. They're like guns for hire.
But does it make it harder to continuously come up with ideas?
Yeah, but production wise, that doesn't like. Writing wise, they see that as a throwaway issue. It's they're thinking about, oh, now we don't have to rely on 5 people being satisfied to do this again season after season.
We just need Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, and the guy who chases them.
Exactly right. That's partially why they set up that formula.
Does the chick from the first episode ever show back up or anything?
She's dead.
Oh, she died? Did she die in that?
Yeah, she got caught in the explosion.
Hey, that's right. He's like at her grave at the end, right?
Well, remember, she died in the Hulk's arms, and she told the Hulk that she loved him.
That's right. I liked her. Damn.
Yeah, I liked her a lot too. He's got bad luck with women, as you'll see in this show.
She was kind of like Moneypenny-esque. She gave him a lot of shit. It was great.
Yeah, no, I liked her a lot too. She was always like I don't know why she wasn't Betty Ross, because I feel like that's how you do Betty Ross. What was I gonna say? Oh, I mean, you've also got his first wife who fucking died in a car accident. So his luck with women is shit.
Oh yeah. That's the whole reason he was researching adrenaline, right?
And I'll tell you something else. He gets married again in this show, and it doesn't end any fucking better.
That's why he spent years of research trying to learn how to lift up the car.
Exactly. All right, Dylan. Here's our gorilla suit. What do you think?
I mean, I've seen worse gorilla suits, honestly.
Late 70s TV show. It's it's actually pretty good. I think here the issue with it is I've seen that design a million times, and it's recognizable as like the gorilla from like a number of comedies that like you can point out. It just kind of looks cheesy.
It's probably one of those stuntmen who has his own gorilla suit, and so people just hire him on the basis that he can bring his own gorilla suit. You know,
absolutely right.
Because it's even that. I mean, it is a decent like that's even passable for like a low grade '70s like movie, like yeah,
not for like a Kong 76.
Well, no, definitely not for a Kong 76. If Meryl Streep was too ugly for Kong 76, then that thing.
I feel like in her version of King Kong, that was in the suit. Is that a dig on Meryl Streep or a dig on that suit? Or on both? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what Meryl Streep looked like in 1976, though, so I can't.
She
really
was hot. I don't know what they were thinking. I have seen what she looked like back in those days, and she was attractive.
Well, it was Dino. His son was all about it, and Dino was like, "Why have you brought me this ugly thing?"
Right. I mean, she was. I mean, she still looks. She still looks good for her age, obviously. But I mean, I remember she was in this fucking movie with Kevin Bacon in the '90s. I remember seeing when I was young, and I was all like, "Oh fuck me, this fucking chick, holy shit." They had her all up in like short shorts and shit in the woods. Holy shit, it was wild. Kevin Bacon was trying to fuck her, and I understood why. Oh, so she's telling him now about how the research of David Banner, which was all about the emotional connection between strength and physical exterior causes of it.
Right. Lifting up the car, yeah.
And how she used him as a great inspiration, but she pointedly mentioned she never saw a photograph of him.
That's very, very
It's
important.
very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah. Does he ever run into anybody in the show who has seen a picture of him and they're like,
I
"Hey, you're
mean, the
David Banner."
reporter knows who he is.
Why didn't he
Yes.
get a?
Okay, yes. So later on, there's another reporter who is a rival of Jack McGee, who's sort of like Jack McGee if he had a tragic backstory. He's got like a sick kid, and David Banner actually takes pity on him and gives him like the tell-all Hulk interview. But then the guy ends up keeping his secret, so it turns out to be nothing.
Why didn't Bill Bixby have the common decency to get his hands on a fake mustache or something?
Okay, so in one episode, they did a thing where there was a mobster who looked exactly like David Banner, who was also played by Bill Bixby.
Of course, yes.
They did that plot line, and
Uh-huh.
I believe he had facial hair, and then he shaved it when he found out about David Banner, so that way he could pretend to be him.
The wanted fugitive.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they were both wanted fugitives, but Banner was supposed to be dead. So nobody. So it's like, which wanted fugitive do you want to be, the dead scientist or the drug lord?
That depends. If I'm trying to hide the dead scientist, but for street cred reasons,
So there's one problem with this that I never thought of, because I used to love this episode when I was a kid. Like whenever it came on, I would be so excited because like I said, it's the one episode from season 1 where it doesn't feel like we're just fucking around. It feels like we're doing stuff.
how wild would it have been if she was like trying to recreate his research and then she accidentally turned herself into a '70s She-Hulk?
Yeah, no, that would have been cool. I wish they would have done. I don't know if the She-Hulk was around at that point. She had like been just introduced.
They could have had a whole spin-off show with the She-Hulk running around from town to town.
They were gonna give her a movie in the '80s, but it wasn't. I don't think she was gonna be like really connected to like a proper Hulk. I think she was gonna be kind of her own thing.
She could have gotten into a slap fight with the Abominatrix. It would have been great. Um,
What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Oh, why the fuck is she telling this fucking poop cleaner all about that? Like, she doesn't know he's David Banner. And he has shown some interest and knowledge about the subject that she knows about. So I guess that she's just being friendly. She probably thinks she's cute. Probably thinks he's cute.
that's an interesting question. I didn't think about that, but yeah, she comes off as like a character from like a satire who just starts monologuing to
Yeah,
everybody.
that's. I didn't think about that because, like I said, I used to love this episode when I was a kid. I would get so excited when it would come on, but now I'm watching it and I'm thinking, why is she telling him all this? Like,
Yeah, like it would make more sense if he had got himself hired on as like a lab assistant or something. But he's just, you're right, he's just a fucking shit scooper. Like that's,
I think if I'm not mistaken, at this point, I think this guy brings it up like, why aren't you out there cleaning shit? Like what are you doing in the lab?
yeah. I mean, does she want to fuck him? Because if I feel like that might
I
be
think
what's
they
going on, but I
do
don't.
go on a date. Maybe I don't remember the whole episode. I know that at some point she gets kidnapped.
I mean, some people are just like that, though. My mom can't even fucking go to the grocery store without telling the cashier all about her day. It's fucking annoying. So I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, my mom does that too. I think that's a mom thing. Everybody's got to know everything about their life.
Yeah, and it goes well beyond like the typical small chat, like, how are you doing today? And most people would say like, oh, I'm fine, or oh, I've been better. But it's like, well, I went here and I did that, and then
Yeah, as somebody who works in the service industry, it's like when people start doing that, it's like, oh no. Because then,
I was just trying to be polite.
well, because it's like suddenly you're being taken out of the script. Then you know.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
suddenly you have to think on your feet and start to, because then they want you to tell them stuff about your day, and it's like, I don't want to talk about myself. This is what I avoided when I took this kind of job, to avoid.
Yeah, I'm in the service industry. How do you think my day's gone?
Yeah, it's like, I could tell them I put Dragon Ball on in the back just to keep my sanity. You know.
Which by the way, not the sanest show in the world.
Yeah, exactly. So what does that tell you about me, huh?
that was a really ominous transition to.
Well, I remembered the plot. I know it's going to be hard for you to keep up with it because I don't think there's subtitles.
Is it just me, or does this black guy he works with kind of look like Jordan Peele in old man makeup?
He has a similar body. Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, in the face, I can kind of see that. Maybe like in a movie, I could almost see them as being related.
Or almost even like almost a James Earl Jones kind of.
Okay, so here's the plot of the episode being unleashed. This is like I said, this is the muscle-bound crook who comes into the grocery store and is like, "Where's my protection money?" So basically, a bunch of animals just start being declared dead, and David knows that they were fine the day before, so he thinks something fishy's going on. Like either they're killing the animals intentionally to collect like the insurance money, or they're not killing them, still collecting the insurance money, and then selling them on the black market. I don't remember which one it actually turns out to be. I'm pretty sure it's the latter, though. I don't think they actually kill them. I think that would be too dark for this show.
Interesting.
It's not a bad plot, but I suddenly feel like I'm watching like that. There was that show on Animal Planet in the mid-2000s. I think it was called Dangerous Cargo or something to that effect, where essentially it was like cops, but it was like exotic wildlife fucking bust. You know, like basically they would bust airplanes full of fucking alligators and crocodiles that were being illegally shipped to the country, you know? That's what this kind of plot belongs in, you know? I don't know about the Hulk show.
Yeah. It is a weird plot to throw the Hulk into.
The Hulk is a hard character to put into a superhero formula kind of thing anyway, though. Because
it's weird.
He's the reluctant hero. You know, he's the character who his powers are only like inadvertently able to help the greater good, only when put in certain situations.
Yeah, well, he's a monster who gets put into superhero situations. It's one of the interesting things about him. Mm-hmm. He doesn't quite fit there, but yet there he is. You know,
as a character, the Hulk is definitely like, I feel like he's somewhere in between a Godzilla and a Gamera. I feel like he has like the personality of a Godzilla, but he's got really more of the temperament and the mindset of a Gamera. You know.
That's what I always found interesting about the Hulk as a child. I think one of the reasons he's one of my favorite Marvel heroes.
He's always been my favorite comic book character overall, by far.
Is that he's essentially a human-sized kaiju.
Yeah,
and that's really interesting.
He's human Godzilla, without a doubt. And Planet Hulk was always like I thought a really good Hulk story that always also could have been a really good Godzilla story. Because they play with similar themes with those kind of characters of, you know, being unique in the universe and, you know, feeling like totally alone, but also being crazy powerful and being able to do great things, but limited by what others around you view you as.
I feel like they're monitoring how sexually aroused he is by these other animals. It's weird.
It's interesting how he reacted to the lion. Some bizarre traumatic memories are coming up in his subconscious. David Banner's like, fascinating. He can see the pictures. He shouldn't know what a tiger is.
Well, I think the idea is that it looks similar enough to a lion.
Yeah, probably.
He recognizes the feline feature. Well, don't just show him cats. Show him a snake or something.
See how he reacts. I mean, lions too are not really a threat. I mean, I'm not saying they can't interact. I mean, they could. Like a lowland gorilla could totally come across a lion, but it's not common.
If you believe in the concept of race memory, then the gorilla could be retaining fear based on sort of. Because he would have evolved from a race of smaller apes who would have been threatened by lions and
that would have been living on like plains and stuff, yeah. But yeah, like a lowland and mountain gorilla is not really going to be worrying about big jungle. I mean, I guess a panther or a jaguar, sure. Are those in Africa? feel like jaguars are. I don't know about I don't know about panthers in gorilla territory though.
Yeah. Which the more I think about it, the more that kind of thing makes sense. Because I used to think that made no sense whatsoever. You know, the idea of like inheriting a memory in some sort of weird way. But when you think about like what instinct is, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, but you've also got to remember there's definitely validity to that. Like if I
Like a fucking deer drops out of its mom's cooch, and the mama deer doesn't have to show it how to walk. It's just like, oh, I got this shit.
yeah, well, yeah,
Like
a lot of that has to do with how long animals sit in the womb. But instinct based on like race memory and stuff. Like if I took you to a zoo and I kept you outside of an alligator enclosure, you'd have a very different reaction than if I took you inside of the alligator enclosure and locked you in. Because the second you had a glimpse of one of them without the fence in between, there's just this instant instinct that kicks in that's just like, oh fuck, flight, get out, death, thing that's threatening me. Because our ancestors are just so instinctively afraid of reptiles. That's why so many people are afraid of snakes and lizards. It's just
that's why we need more guns in zoos. No.
Yeah. But like my dad is petrified of snakes. Like hates them. And lizards are not much better. And it's just because of like the way they move is so different, it just disturbs them, you know? It's probably the same way same reason I don't like spiders. It's the exact same thing. They just look weird.
My family has the same thing, but I'm fascinated by snakes, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely able to separate my fascination with things and my and also my like, oh, that's a scary thing that I don't like and wouldn't want to be in the same room as. Although I would much rather like swim with a crocodile than like be in the same room as one of those big fucking bird-eating spiders in Australia.
Well, that's just, I mean, one of them eats birds, the other one eats a person. That's
right. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like I would have better odds surviving the crocodile somehow. I feel like I could somehow survive. I feel like there's more things I have power to do. Because if you get one bite from the spider, you're done. I mean, the spider's not going to eat you, but you will die. But you could still get bitten by the crocodile and survive. So I feel like your odds, like that's what I'm saying, your odds of survival are better.
Well, yeah, the bite, but then it fucking death rolls and rips your arm off.
Depending on what happens, sure. I just think I think there's more options in the crocodile scenario, though. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. You gotta get yourself one of those knives that they use on sharks that like you stab them and then they explode.
Well, yeah, well, it's the same kind of problem though. It's just the way they're built. You know, you got to get under the armor. You got to get in between the joints and stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to hit him. You want to. There's a spot between where the leg meets the body. That's a good point of entry for a knife.
You could take the Drax approach. The skin is too thick to be pierced from the outside. I must pierce it from the inside.
It's weird that they made that joke in Guardians 2, because that worked in the Avengers. Remember, because Iron Man flies inside the space whale and blows it up from the inside.
Well, I've seen that done in other things too, but it's not the problem with what you're not going inside to pierce the skin from the inside. That Drax is misunderstanding. The reason you would fly into a giant creature, if it was too impenetrable, is that its internal organs will be much easier to damage. So you can kill it from the inside. But he's just trying to stab through the skin, and that doesn't make sense because, like Star-Lord points out, the skin is the same thickness whether you're on the inside or the outside.
Right, yeah, okay, true. Yeah, I mean, Iron Man blew up a bomb, so if Drax had blown up a bomb, I guess he probably would have done damage.
If Drax's thought process had been, the skin is too thick to be pierced from the outside, I must go in and stab it in the fucking heart, then maybe. Assuming, of course, that alien tentacle monster has a heart in the tradition.
This is weird. So this guy comes in, he gives the...
Did you just leave the gorilla door open?
He did it intentionally. He gave the gorilla... So this chick has come up with this serum that activates the aggressive tendencies in animals in order to conduct her experiments on how to relieve the stress. And and this guy just gave it to the gorilla and left the door open and threw some kind of gas in there. No, he threw broken glass. I don't know why he threw the glass in there.
I don't know.
I guess it was just a pretense. Why does he want David? Oh, because David noticed the animals dying.
He's trying to get him whacked. I guess whatever.
Oh, and he's trying to blame the gorilla. Basically, they want the Hulk to fight the gorilla.
Yeah, whatever contrived shit they got to do to get the Incredible Hulk to fight the ever-loving Harambe, they're gonna do it.
But this is also a show where the Hulk's not allowed to punch stuff. So this is not going to be a very satisfying fight.
Yeah, well, why can't the Hulk punch the gorilla punched him? That's not fair.
Yeah, I know. Nah, it's not really punching though. It's a whack.
Can the Hulk whack him back?
No, there's whacking, but there's no fist on skin action. That's what they don't show. Oh, you know, I don't know if the Hulk whacks the gorilla. The Hulk does a lot of throwing.
Maybe he can intimidate the gorilla by showing it his human-sized penis.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was a hit.
You know what? Yeah, he just got punched him. I don't know what you're talking about.
They talk about in the production for the show though. I guess it's just people. He can't hit people. I think when we see later on, he's going to do a lot of throwing. I do like that. I like the, the gorilla was in charge inside that cage for a while, and then as soon as the Hulk came out, it was like, you ain't shit, homie. I always like stuff like that. There's a Hulk arc from a few years ago where I've told you about this before. Banner and the Hulk were separated once again. This time it was intentionally. The Hulk went to Dr. Doom and was like, hey, can you get this guy out of my head? He's kind of weird.
Didn't the Hulk learn his lesson from the last time they got separated and they both almost died?
No.
I guess anytime you start a sentence with "didn't the Hulk learn his lesson?"
Yeah, exactly. Because Banner was the one who didn't want it. He was like, no, we should stay together because this always ends badly. Hulk was like, don't care, leaving now. But point is, Hulk ended up having to fight an entire legion of gamma of Hulk sharks that Bruce had created, and it's the same idea. Like initially, they're all like top shit. Like all the Shield agents he's with are like, oh fuck. He's like, homie, you're with the Hulk. Calm down. I got this. It's a great scene. That's all she's got, really? I'd be like, what in fucking hell? Or I'd be like, or you'd be like, what in my titty fucking... You'd come up with something better than, oh my god.
Right, yeah, I guess it was a little better than, like, fucking Liv Tyler, who could see the Hulk and just be like, Bruce?
Yeah. I don't know, it's hard to do... It's always hard to do, like, the monster reaction in somewhat of a family show like this, because you can't have somebody go holy fuck or holy shit or any of the normal things they would say.
They could have at least had her let out a scream, get a little Fay Ray action. That
oh my god, the Hulk just stole that girl's peanuts. That's great. Man, I know why. I'm remembering why this one was a standout to me as a kid.
This is very Frankenstein and the little girl.
They had already done that in the pilot. The pilot, though, remember? He threw that, like, she ended up, remember she got on the boat, she fell out of the boat, he used the tree to save her.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was about to say, is he going to throw this little girl into the elephant enclosure? See, that's a better reaction. Why didn't the lady scientist do that?
Yeah, that was pretty good, actually.
I'm sorry. I thought the Hulk's power was anger, not startledness. Why didn't he punch that bitch in the face?
He's scared of the ladies. He's like Yamcha in early Dragon Ball.
Oh, okay, yeah, he can beat the shit out of Goku, but Can't see Bulma.
The second Bulma wakes up, he's like, "Fuck!"
If Bulma had flashed him, he would have just died right then and there.
Yeah, well, she did in the next episode, and then he basically did die.
Oh yeah, that's right.
God, that show was so raunchy. It remains raunchy even to this day when Goku's jerking off the fucking King of Space.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like a Family Guy or something, honestly.
Yeah, it really is. It's like Family Guy, but like tolerable,
Well,
with likable characters that I don't mind not aging for 20 years.
yeah, yeah. Okay, it's more like American Dad.
Yeah, I do prefer an American Dad, but that's another show where it's like I can only watch it for so long before. And I know that you and I have different like limits when it comes to stuff like this, but at a certain point, I can only take so much of characters that I just think are the absolute worst, And I just need to have some people where I'm like, oh, okay, I can hang out with these guys for a while, I can only take so much of like, oh man, these are the worst people imaginable. Oh my god, I forgot about that. That's awesome. This is very American Werewolf in London, but that's after this. So I wonder if they took that from this.
Orc find kitty.
Oh, this is from the pilot. We talked about this when we talked about the pilot. They definitely do not need that shot.
The sun's getting real low.
Aw, a cute little kitty.
And the mama kitty, who for some reason isn't biting his head off right now.
There is nothing cuter than baby predators, like animals that one day will turn into like horrible killers. Like they're adorable. Like baby panthers, baby jaguars, baby lions. They're all adorable. Baby snow leopards. Holy fuck, they are cute. Even like reptiles, like a baby alligator, super cute. Baby snakes.
Okay. And then they turn into fucking Shere Khan. It's great.
Yeah, exactly. Tigers. I mean, wolf puppies are adorable,
Well, even the fucking baby raptor from Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I mean, they talk about it in the Jurassic Park novel, how lovable and cute and sociable and like how affectionate the baby raptors are because they're so intelligent, and it's only once they, grow all their teeth and claws that they suddenly go, oh, fuck you. See, look at this baby tiger. It's literally, like, they literally just put Bill Bixby in with this baby tiger, and it just wants to be picked up and held in body contact.
It does seem to be a thing about predators, though, doesn't it? Because baby hippo doesn't have the same effect.
Baby hippos are pretty cute, too, though. But they're not, like, there isn't, like, a huge leap, though, from a baby hippo to an adult hippo.
Now that I think about it, I don't know that I've ever seen a baby hippo.
Baby, but like the cuter, like you look at whales and stuff, like they don't look that different. Like mammals don't look as radically different, from outside of your like hairy predators, from adulthood to from youth to adulthood. I don't feel, like your whales don't look that different.
Oh my god, I take it back. I want a baby hippo.
Yeah, they're adorable. Whenever you used to talk about like a potbelly orca back in the day, I always imagined a hippo without legs. Like a baby hippo without legs, I meant to say. As like a size comparison.
Yeah. The only problem is then they grow up to be the most dangerous animal on the... Well, that's the problem. They're still dangerous. We need a nice, non-dangerous mammal, and then they're baby.
We need Henry Wu to come in and be like, listen, I'll put in some docile genes. It'll be fine.
Let me look at a baby giraffe. Let's see what a baby giraffe looks like.
You ever heard the story of that giraffe that they like walked across Europe as a present to that one king? And it was like world famous. It captured the world's imagination, and that's why African exploration became like this huge obsession.
No, I've heard the story about how people saw rhinos, and that's where like the unicorn myth came from.
No, I never heard that, but I mean that makes sense. Oh, what I also like about this episode is that she gets blamed for the Hulk's existence. They think that she made the Hulk in her lab. That it's like some animal or maybe even some person that she did experiments on.
Look, if this episode draws any more comparisons to the Planet of the Apes franchise, I'm gonna be.
She is basically like a Dr. Zira type, isn't she? I mean, she is Dr. Zira. She's an animal psychologist.
Yeah, but it also feels like like the first half hour of, or not even half hour, like the first 10 minutes of Escape when they're in the zoo.
Yeah, it does. The gorilla suit in this is better than the gorilla suit in that, though.
Yeah, it is. Interestingly enough, well, it's later
Oh
on in the,
fuck, there he is.
it is later on in the timeline. Is this
Jack McGee, National Register.
Jack? That's the most basic bitch name you could come up with for this kind of character, Jack McGee.
I just wish there was like other comic book characters in this show, man. I love this show so much. I would love it so much more if it had comic book characters in it.
There's technically not even one comic book character because there's no Bruce Banner anywhere in it.
I mean, it's his full name is David Bruce Banner, so I mean, if you want to get cute, technically.
Oh, but in the comics, isn't his full name like Bob Bruce?
Yeah, so it's technically still the same. His full name in the comics is Robert Bruce Banner. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Stanley fucked up and called him Bob in an issue, and they had to explain it somehow.
Yep. I remember that. I love Stanley. He's a treasure.
Bob Banner.
Fuck Jack Kirby though. No, that was Marvel.
Just imagine Stanley with a giant strap on. Jack Kirby.
Wait, what? But he's a. Why, wait a second.
only to make it hurt more.
Oh, okay. Way to give a fuck you to both Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Good job. It's hard to do. It's always fun the ways they find to keep David out of Jack McGee's sight. You know, because when he's the Hulk, Jack McGee can see him all he wants. But when he's David Banner, he can't because obviously Jack will find out. Some episodes later in the season, once Jack has an idea that the Hulk is a guy who turns into the Hulk, because he doesn't know that at this point. They start contriving ways for him to see David with like a mask on or like a hood up or something, or he'll be a taxi driver and have a hat and glasses on.
I feel like every episode there's a moment we don't see where David Banner hears Jack McGee on the other side of a door and says to himself, "Oh, this asshole."
No, we do see it. We see it every episode. He just doesn't say, "Oh, this asshole."
We didn't see it this time.
We did. You missed it.
I did.
Yeah, you weren't paying attention.
And stays there.
Yeah, exactly. He got introduced late this time, and in the first season, I talked about Jack McGee in the last review we did for this show. He's a character who's like totally intolerable in the first season, and then he becomes like a real person in season 2, and then he becomes like a treasure every time he shows up. He gets a full episode devoted to him in season 3, and it's one of the best ones. And it's a clip show too. How about that?
Oh no.
It's a good clip show. It's astounding.
Oh, huh?
Yeah, I know. Because the clips are really short, and they're used for a story purpose.
Okay, wait. So, is what we already saw the extent of the Hulk fighting the gorilla? Do they fight again, or is that it?
No, the gorilla's done. We see the Hulk again, but he's not going to be fighting the gorilla.
He's going to be fighting the mobsters.
Yes.
Okay.
There's going to be lots of throwing. See, that's the problem with this show. Like, the fights are not fights. They're grabbing contests. Because we had that one really impressive hit from the Hulk onto the gorilla. But then they just started grappling with that branch, and then that was pretty much the extent of the action.
Did they have the rights to other comic characters and just never used any of them? Or was it a situation
they could do
where
whatever they wanted, D. They could have done anything they wanted.
Because I was about to say, these days when Marvel doesn't do it anymore, obviously, because they want everything to be in their own cinematic universe. But whenever Marvel sold off the rights to like Fantastic Four to Fox, Fox got Silver Surfer and Galactus, and they turned him into a clown.
D, they had carte blanche to pretty much use whatever Marvel stuff they wanted. That's why later on when they were like Thor and Daredevil, they could just do Thor and Daredevil because Marvel was desperate to get their characters on screen.
I thought they had the scrolls too, but I guess not because they're going to be in Captain Marvel. So who knows?
They're sharing the scrolls, I think. Because I think the scrolls are also going to be mentioned in oh no, never mind. What are the aliens in Dark Phoenix are
The Shi'ar.
the Shi'ar? That's right. Okay.
Yeah. The bird people.
Right. Oh yeah, I always remember that because Xavier fucks one, and I always remember Xavier fucking the bird lady.
Yeah. The Shi'ar Empire. There's all these big star empires in the Marvel universe, and somehow none of them include Earth. Like there's the Kree and the Skrulls and the Shi'ar.
Right. Like everything else is conquered except the Earth. Like our solar system is the only one that doesn't have intelligent life in it. Well, except us.
Celestials wandering around the universe destroying shit. Meanwhile, the Earth is just standing by.
Well, what I always love in like every sci-fi thing is that Earth is just like a dumping ground for every other alien civilization until we finally catch up.
Right. That's not even the case in the MCU, though. They have Sakaar for that.
No, Earth is still a little bit of that. I mean, all the Asgardians have left their shit here, like the Kree have. That's how Coulson came back to life in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Is that they used a bunch of leftover Kree tech.
Was it Kree or was it Chitauri?
I'm pretty sure it was Kree. I don't think it was Chitauri.
Or where would they have gotten Kree tech from?
Because it was left on Earth at some point.
You know what? I think it was Kree now that I think about it, because I think there's a moment where Daisy, who was still called Sky at that point, she hadn't found out her real name, went into the lab and found, or maybe it was Phil. Maybe he did it himself. I think it was because he was discovering, because he didn't know how he had been brought back to life, and then he discovered it. Anyway, they find the lab where they brought him back to life, and they find the body of like an alien, and I'm pretty sure it was blue skin, so it probably was Kree.
Because also the Chitauri tech isn't really like medical based; it's all weapons. So that's why it's like, you know, Toomes in Spider-Man: Homecoming. He's got Chitauri stuff. He also had he had stolen Ultron arms and stuff though too.
Yeah, I feel like you could apply some of that Chitauri tech to any field though. I mean, a lot of it's just
probably
like alien power batteries that you hook up to different stuff, you know.
Right. I mean, they didn't show it well enough in Age of Ultron, but no. Hydra is using all like Chitauri-based weapons in that opening action scene. Like, yeah, there's a bunch of fucking soldiers flying around with Chitauri-based stuff that they don't really give you a good look at.
Well, that's the thing. Hydra's still kicking around, and nobody seems to be addressing it because, you know, they were trying to get their hands on the Yellow Jacket in Ant-Man. And I only recently found...
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And I only recently found out that Zolo was supposed to be in Ant-Man, and then I guess that was like an early script thing, and that got changed. And he was going to be in an actual robot body like he is in the comics. That would have been great.
That would have been dope.
If he had gotten off that helicopter with that other guy, that would have been like so fucking dope.
We're waiting for MODOK though.
But they already wasted AIM.
Yeah, it's true. You can bring AIM back though. Just like have it like, oh, we're a couple people who are working for Killian, but we're just gonna do it better now.
That's why I left the theater in 2013 so fucking conflicted by Iron Man 3, because I'm like, half of this was really fun and enjoyable, but then the other half was taking stuff from the comics I like and basically throwing it out the window and being like, can't do it now, we've ruined it. You know, they even had to retcon that Mandarin thing later on because so many people were pissed. There's like a one-shot where you find out that there is an actual Mandarin out there.
That's why that's a much easier pill to swallow now.
Which we'll probably never see because Tony Stark's contract is ending and he's probably going to die on Friday.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not convinced that we won't see another solo Iron Man movie down the line. I think it'll just be like, gotta give him some space. And I think they're waiting to see how Downey feels, because give it some space to see if they either recast it or if he has the desire to come back.
Yeah, well, everybody's being super flippant about it right now because they don't want to give anything away. Chris Evans keeps showing up on interviews and they're like, so are you done playing Captain America? And he never says he's done. He just says, well, my contract is up.
Right, he says exactly the same thing he's been saying since the first Avengers, which is like, we'll see. You know, Like, if as long as these keep being fun to make and they make money, I think that they'll all just keep coming back. You know?
I mean, listen, I was in Not Another Teen Movie. My standards aren't exactly.
Right. I mean, it also seems like they all like to be there. It doesn't seem like it's a DC. It doesn't seem like any of them are Ben Affleck in the DC movies, where it's like every time they're there, it's like pulling teeth, you know?
Yeah, well, they had to do a few recastings early on in Phase 1, but ever since then, it seems like their casting department has just been on point.
Yeah, like they got Terrence Howard out. Who else was never thrilled to be like all the characters? Like like your Tommy Lee Jones and everything. They probably wouldn't have been great to stick around because they wouldn't have been on board with the whole.
Yeah.
With
Well,
the
he
whole,
wouldn't stick around anyway because he would be dead.
Sure. But those kind of actors, they're not going to stick around for the whole glorious universe. They get their 2 cents in and then they're out.
Hugo Weaving has said that he doesn't want to come back, and that's kind of sad because the Red Skull is still out there.
I think that's probably the biggest bummer. But you can recast him.
You can, and it won't be that big a deal.
I'm kind of bummed that Robert Redford wasn't just Red Skull. Because every time I rewatch Winter Soldier.
But how would he have found his way back to Earth? He got teleported off into space, into the nether. So like how would he have made his way back to Earth?
Yeah, that's true. And that would have been weird to deal with space stuff in Winter Soldier. You're right, but or even
Plus Robert
Zemo.
Redford had all this. Plus Robert Redford had all this backstory with Nick Fury, and they had known each other for years. But of course, we
know nothing about him prior to that, though, and he was already a high up at Shield at that point.
But of course, Pierce is a whole other character that they were adapting from the comics. So,
yeah.
I only recently realized that senator who was Hydra is the same senator from Iron Man 2 that was giving Tony Stark a hard time.
No, that was always great. I always loved that.
Senator Gary Shandling, whatever his character was called.
I only recently realized that the guy on the rooftop in the Winter Soldier, he's in other stuff. Like he's in the Avengers and he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Guy on the rooftop.
Sitwell.
Oh yeah.
It's a name I knew from the comics, but I never knew that that's who that was supposed to be, and then I put it together recently.
Yeah. Yeah, him I knew about, but
there's a whole bunch of S.H.I.E.L.D. regulars from the comics who are very, very small potatoes in the movies.
But Iron Man 2, surprisingly, not one that I rewatch very often. And so when I did recently, in prep for Infinity War, I was like, oh shit, it's the Hydra guy from Winter Soldier. I always knew he was an asshole.
Well, now you realize he was going to steal the Iron Man armor for Hydra. Like, that was his plan.
Yeah, really. Sitwell was more of a surprise. They never really played him as like an asshole until Winter Soldier.
No, yeah. Oh. Well, he was one of the S.H.I.E.L.D. fallouts of like, oh, they're bad. So...
Yeah, it actually makes that whole thing more believable because you need like one guy who you thought was a Coulson but was actually a Zola,
Yeah. But he's one of those characters that we should have like gotten to see more of, or who should have done more on screen. All he does in the Avengers is go, "Hey, Loki's in this place. Let's go." That's all he does.
Thanks, bald man with glasses, who's in no way a villain.
You're welcome. Oh, he's gonna sign our cast. That's very nice.
He writes "loser" on it.
Yeah. Great. Nice it reference, Dylan. So in the end, the Hulk beat up some mobsters and ran around a zoo.
Well, that's, I mean, hey, in the comics, he once worked as a circus clown, so...
I remember that. He was under hypnosis at the time, though.
Why not?
That was when the Hulk was a slave. There was a time where the Hulk was essentially like the slave of Rick Jones, where he did anything that Rick Jones said, and that was that time.
Pretty sure that was in the first issue of Avengers, right? That's where Loki found him.
No, he was a free spirit in the Avengers. There was no Bruce Banner at that point. It was just Hulk.
Oh, okay.
He had repressed Bruce Banner so much that he could just kind of be the Hulk all the time.
I'm combining an early Hulk comic with an early Avengers comic in my head, and they were two separate things.
The early Avengers comics are awesome.
Don't tell her how to do it. It turns you into a big green monster.
Yeah. This
At least,
bitch doing experiments.
at least David, or at least Edward Norton Banner had the decency to be like, "Hey, that's a bad idea. Don't replicate my experiment."
What's a bad idea?
David Banner's just like leaving clues all over the place. Headcanon, she does become She-Hulk there. I said it.
I would agree. So one of my favorite episodes from season 1. What did you think, D?
Yeah. I didn't like it as much as the first episode. But I don't know. That was a good gorilla suit.
Definitely like the formula. You can see it though, right? Like
Yeah, definitely,
the
definitely.
whole he gets a job, problem
And
with the job.
I think the fact that this
He
is your
needs
favorite,
to throw people.
and I think the fact that that was your favorite episode from season 1 illustrates a lot of what you've been saying about season 1.
Yeah.
Because it's a perfectly fine episode, but in another show it would be very middle of the road. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. But it's interesting because season 1, it's like, it's this bizarre, and you can point to a million shows that have this problem. Like, it feels prototypey because we're not really sure what this is yet, but at the same time, the production is at its highest. You know? Like, people give a fuck about it at the most right now. So, like, the production quality is the best. So that gorilla suit looked really good. But at the same time, the script writing in season 4 is probably... I think it's probably at the best then. I feel like they were just taking like the most risks, you know? Because that's the season where they did more than one Hulk, and they did space stuff, and they started revealing his identity to people.
That's the tragic thing sometimes with these TV shows. It's like the writing has to improve over time, but then by the time it gets really good, nobody gives a shit anymore.
And the production isn't as good, yeah.
The really great shows are able to maintain momentum so that by the time they get to like writing that's actually good, people still give a shit and they can actually put a budget behind it. You know, Star Trek: The Next Generation kind of has that problem. Early on, they didn't really know what to do with it, and they were stuck because Gene Roddenberry was still alive, and he had all these like strict rules about how the future had to be. And then eventually, when he died, they were able to write the show.
I love how that was like the funniest thing you said all night, like this. And then when he died,
it got good. No, they were finally.
I fucking love it.
They were finally able to write it however they wanted, and it got more interesting. And luckily for that show, it had been successful. You know, well, that was a show actually that sort of built an audience over time. So by the time the writing got better, the interest was at its peak. That's ultimately what you want. You want to hit that sweet spot where you have both, you know, you have your shit together and you also have a budget to put your shit on screen.
This show had problems its entire run. I like it always. I think at the core of it, Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno are the reason why it holds up as much as it does, because they still have a personality and an endearing quality that not every show from this era is able to maintain. But all the ones that do, they all have like a face and a personality at their heart, and then this is one of those shows. So I think Bruce Banner will always be defined by Bill Bixby's portrayal of that character. Like, you look at Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, and it's pretty much the David Banner version, but with more of the psychological trauma from the comics. Especially when you get into like Ragnarok and even in Age of Ultron, they started to get into it a little bit.
He even kind of maintains a little bit of the 70s like hair, you know. Mark Ruffalo, he keeps his hair kind of bushy.
I like it. Yeah, no, I've always liked that. He and what I also
except in Ragnarok, it was more trim then.
Well, no, because he got the gladiator haircut. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? What they really maintained about the version of Banner from this show in the movies that I like is that he's a doctor and a healer first, and like a nuclear physicist second, because the whole nuclear physicist Banner is done. Like, that's from the 60s. Like, and like that worked at the time, but we've moved on to like the geneticist, you know, kind of like engineering banner, you know. So you need to have that version, you know, where he can be on the run, like solving diseases in curing diseases is what I meant to say in fucking Istanbul, and then Fury can call him in to track an energy source. He needs to be able to do both. So I think they've nailed that.
Or you can just hang out on an alien planet for several years, punching people in the face.
You know, I would prefer any of those things sound good to me. Any and all Hulk things, I am cool with. So, on that note, Dylan, you and I are not done with Marvel yet. As we, I think I'm
No. And the next one we do is going to be much more tangibly connected to Infinity War as opposed to this video.
The most tangibly connected, yeah.
As opposed to this video, which was very tenuous. And you're probably sitting at home thinking, oh, they're going to talk about the Infinity Gauntlet. No, it's too long. But we will talk about the prequel to that, Thanos Quest, which is a little two-part comic series from 1990, I think, or 89.
Yeah, 90 is what I saw.
One of those years, and it's really fucking good. And so we'll talk about that. Well, I think it's.
It also seems to be more of what Infinity War is directly adapting, whereas Infinity Gauntlet is like the broader conflict. Because Thanos Quest is Thanos getting the stones, and that seems to be what Infinity War is.
Right, so. And it's also classic, like, cosmic Marvel, just like crazy out there concepts. So that's fun shit.
And Thanos is really well written in it, and that's
Thanos is really well.
And that's what we need to talk about.
And you haven't even finished it yet, Bill.
No.
The last page of that comic is pure genius. Anyway, so we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that in the very immediate future. So be on the lookout.
Indeed. And then after that, well, I guess we'll leave it a surprise. We're going to do another commentary on a 90s... We talked about the 90s Marvel animated series before. We're going to do a commentary on a multi-parter from one of those that is also tenuously connected to Infinity War because it's a bunch of Marvel characters together. So I'll let you guess which one that is. You'll find out for sure next episode when we talk about Thanos Quest. Can't wait to see you then. Until then, I am Bill Worcester, a.k.a. Zazubaar.
A few years ago when we were leading up to Doctor Strange, we should have watched the multi-parter from Spider-Man where it's like Baron Mordo and Carnage. You remember that? Anyway, I'm Super DM64.
Was that a multi-parter? I feel like that was only one, maybe two.
I felt like it was a two-parter, but I could be wrong.
You could be right or wrong.
I feel like most things in that show were two-parters though, especially when you got to later seasons.
They were, yeah. Like I remember like the Venom arc was only. I think it was 3 or 4, but like Venom himself only constituted one episode. I always thought that was weird.
Yeah, it was always weird what they spent a lot of time on. Like, do I really care about all this information about Felicia Hardy's dad?
Oh my god, that was the worst part of that show. And then fucking like Peter Parker's parents were all involved in Captain America in World War II. And I'm okay.
That was such a weird. I hate when.
Okay, this is all right, but can we?
I'm not a fan.
Back to the Spider-Manning.
I'm not a fan of the Peter Parker parents being like super spies thing that everybody seems to think is a great idea. I like my Spider-Man to just be an average Joe who got bit by a spider. Like, don't give him connections to Captain America.
I'm always really conflicted about it because I like I like the idea of him being an average Joe because he was raised by his aunt and uncle, but like his parents were like these super spy. I always thought that was fun.
But then you almost make it feel like this like Harry Potter thing.
Yeah,
where it's like,
it does definitely feel like a Harry Potter thing. Well, that's why I don't like the Amazing Spider-Man movies, is because
they did that.
Suddenly, like there's no. It's not even because they gave the parents backstories. It's because suddenly he's the only one that could have gotten the powers, and it feels really like. It feels really like we're bastardizing the whole concept.
I'm not even in love with in the Ultimate comics when they connected his parents to the Venom, or his dad specifically to the Venom thing. Even though that was probably like the best example of this that I can think of, like in terms of execution.
I'll agree there. Sure.
Like I don't know. No. Some characters just need to be completely normal up until the point of their being exposed to radiation or whatever the fuck. As soon as you go into their backstory and tell the real truth about what happened, that's when it gets fucking stupid and convoluted.
Mm-hmm. I like it in the context of the grander Marvel universe where everything is connected, just because it's fun that like before there was a Spider-Man that like Peter Parker's parents were out like fucking around with Claw and shit.
Well, but just because everything is connected doesn't mean that everything
No,
has to be connected.
I know.
Like,
I'm not saying it has to be. I'm just saying that it can be fun.
like here's a bad example I can think of, and maybe you like this. I don't know. This isn't Marvel even. This is the DC thing. I was never a fan of that story where it's like, did you know that one time at a party Bruce's dad was Batman?
Oh yeah, he put the bat suit on and he stopped that guy from like blowing up the party or whatever.
Yeah, I always thought that was super. I always thought that was dumb.
I don't even think I never liked that, even because that I don't even think that idea is dumb. I just think that story is nothing, and I don't think it serves any purpose. That's why I think that's dumb. I don't think it's dumb because
That's
he
true.
puts on a bat suit. I feel
It
like
makes it sound like it's this epic reveal, And if you had wanted to make it like some sort of epic reveal, like
they made it like this big reveal because like Batman goes back in time or whatever and like interacts with him, and it's like this weird like they get to stop a crime together, and it's like it's just fucking. Listen, I remember watching commercials back in like 2006 where it's like, oh, you shouldn't use the word gay to describe stupid. Sometimes it just feels right though, and that's fucking gay.
I concur. Were there
Anyway.
really commercials in the 90s about not using the word gay?
Mid 2000s.
I
watched like Power Rangers on Disney, and suddenly they're like, you can't use the word gay to refer to something as stupid. And I'm like, I understand why it's offensive, and I acknowledge it. I'm not going to stop though.
I don't remember anything like that. Interesting. Anyway,
So join us for all that and more on the next episode of the Demons from Outer Space. Dem Germans, they be fucked up. It was a podcast. You heard it. Get the stones, Thanos.